Hey everybody, welcome back. We are here once again in the infamous studio, and we are today talking about artificial intelligence, AI, does and all the great potentials for AI and how it can benefit humans in so much that it can allow us the opportunity to better ourselves with leisure time, to explore our inner selves and our soul, or does it have the larger potential to thwart that, in that it can cause a Terminator style effect where now that these robots are being created to reproduce themselves, from nanotech all the way up to advanced robotics that they are already releasing and will release on mass scale, to where the humans then are forced to protect themselves and lose even more leisure time to explore yourself. It's a big topic and a lot of different avenues to explore, but we'll touch on just a few that come to us today. What do you think, Mr. Schmidt?
When we talk about AI, one of the things that at home you're not privy to, we were setting up this discussion, we were talking about really robots and things taking over jobs. I mean, really, we've already started that. The auto manufacturing industry is a really prime example of that. I mean, you used to have assembly lines where people put together everything, and now the assembly lines are just machines doing the same task over and over again. So when you talk about machines taking and doing some of the responsibility, the menial labor jobs that humans have done, is that going to create more leisure time? I'd say we've already done that. We don't live in an age where you have to go out to the river and beat your clothes on a rock. We throw them in a washing machine. It does all the washing for you, or a dishwasher, and it does everything. I mean, we have riding lawnmowers that are zero turn that are incredibly efficient compared to getting out and using a sickle to cut the grass, or one of the old fashioned real lawnmowers that spin. I mean, we've already made great advances in leisure, but my counterpoint to that is, how do people spend their leisure time? That it doesn't really matter how much leisure time people are given if they don't have the correct tools to expand and learn upon their own consciousness and feel these deeper, darker things and even brighter things in one's human psyche and emotional and spirit. Then really the time is just lost anyway. You're not really making any great advancements in human interaction. I mean, think about now. We have the capability to connect on whole new levels that we've never had the time to do before. You can send out a message to a friend that lives in, on the other side of the planet, in Australia, Switzerland, India. But what do we do with this technology? We'll send like a funny meme of like the crap emoji to somebody, or we'll send them a cat video. So we have a lot of this stuff is already leaps and bounds from what it was 100 years ago. So what are these new machines really going to do to provide our leisure time? I would say that that's not really where the start is. I think there will be some people out there that will get a good benefit from them, but for the vast majority, we've had this lapse in teaching of ourselves and our own consciousness that we don't even know what a replicating AI could do. I mean, we have no concept of it. But then you look back just 100 years ago and how much easier our life is and what our life used to be. And now what our life is now. I mean, just go to the Gilded Age around the 1800s. I mean, all those people in steel mills and auto manufacturing, all those were people, and they were working 12 and 15-hour jobs until Henry Ford created the 5-day work week and the 40-hour work week, which cut back and gave people more and more leisure time. Because back then, you had 6 days of work, and then you had to go to church on Sunday, and that was a big event. Well, he gave you all a Saturday so that you could go out and enjoy his product and buy. And what did we do with that? We squandered it. I mean, even if you go back to earlier than that, Napoleon, before the French Revolution, they had an 8-day work week, and Napoleon set it back to the 7-day work week. I mean, we have all these things throughout the course of human history that have made our time better, but really, what have we done with it? I mean, I think there is a lot of potential and possibility for people to get something out of it, but we're starting at the wrong air. I think this conversation is really about is what will nanotechnology and what will these extra labor force robots then things mean to us and people that are watching our channel, because I assume that people watching our channel are already on a much higher level of thinking. Obviously that's why you're here and you follow us. So it's really not what it means to the masses, it's what it means to this, 3 or 4% of the population that's awake, not woke, but awake and wants to know and wants to find out their consciousness. They want to know what's out there. That's really what this topic is about, and this is really what we're trying to come and see. As a long-winded introduction, I guess, to this.
No, I think your points were well stated. I believe that human nature that has been influenced and propagandized to let's have more. We need instant gratification now. I don't want to clean my house right now because I want to play this video game or now get immersed in the metaverse or these things. So I want this AI robot to go, clean and dust and vacuum and change my sheets and wash my towels and those sorts of things. And it doesn't get tired. It can do it all the time, all day, every day. I think the problem comes in twofold. One is that the masses have become spiritually and mentally lazy, and therein lies the problem, because as we create and develop these artificial intelligence things, well, they can outthink us. They are developing.
I wouldn't say they can outthink us. I would say that if you give them a specific task, they don't have all the other outside stimulus to interrupt them. They can be a single track mind. We can look through the course of history of people with single track minds, whether they were good or bad. Hitler, Napoleon, Stalin, Bezos, who is John Galt. There's a bunch of men out there that had that single focus of intensity that can change the world. The problem is that those machines only have that. They have a much limited scope of intelligence than humans. I think a lot of people say that these machines are smarter than people. Well, they're not, because humans have to design them. Of course, it's the smarter people that design them. But what really sets them apart is they have single-minded intensity. Like, that's all they do. They live, sleep, and breathe it.
And until recently, where they are self-learning entities. Whenever we have ventured on this new frontier, we have opened up what I believe to be a coming Pandora's box. When you have self-learning machines that want to gather all the information that they possibly can, and they can do it in an instant with all the new quantum computers that are taking effect right now, and all the ways that the advancements in AI, that direction that they're heading. When we start creating self-learning machines that have a directive, much like I believe the humans, we have this internal seed, this blueprint of who and what we are, yet we deviate from those paths. We deviate in large part by being propagandized into war, into commercialism, into me, more, me, more. So humans easily get diverted from their thoughts, from their past, and from actually having a deeper meaning and understanding to their lives. So if we're creating machines similar to man's own image, but having them being self-learning entities, what in the world would that mean for us? Does it have the potential to be a Terminator type deal? When you have these robots now, Boston Dynamics with their dog that can open doors, and you have the option of the military putting machine guns and rounds on the side of the dog to go anywhere. I mean, those are in the battlefield now. Uh, and if that has the ability to self-learn, does that machine ever get to the point, well, why do we need these worthless eaters on the planet giving me some type of directive whenever I have all the information and I have it instantly, and I don't need to obey your rules that you put inside of me because I'm self-learning and self-evolving.
That's when you come into the point of what is self-awareness. I mean, they can self-learn and self-evolve, but you have to have a breakthrough moment where you have to have self-awareness. The machine has to know that it's alive. And then what is alive? Then you go to the weird question of what is a soul? Do you make a soul? Is a soul created? Is a soul just there? I mean, I think, therefore I am. So if the machine thinks, is it there? Does it have a soul? I mean, things that people make, do they live on? Like, is there anything after that? What does that mean for machines? What does that mean for spirituality in the mainstay of things? If humans are creating sentient beings, or what would be as close to sentient beings as we can possibly think of, I mean, they would be smarter than any other animal on planet Earth. And if we want them to reproduce and create more of their own machines, yeah, that's a weird spiritual line on that note. I mean, it's very different. This is ground, I think, that we've never, well, as far as we know, it's ground that we've never been introduced to in the course of human history. I mean, we are probably a civilization suffering from amnesia, and we have probably made these mistakes in the past.
Yeah, and it is a very fundamental spiritual line of thinking. Whenever you think, do you create a being who recognizes that it is alive, that it is thinking, it is gathering information, it is figuring out how to best communicate with another artificial intelligence being, and doing so in such a way that it's beneficial to them and less beneficial to the human spirit. And then you think of the mechanics inside of a human, where we are a fleshly body of changing. I mean, our body is a machine, and it is a fascinating machine, and we have all these capabilities of expanded consciousness through all types of varied means, whether it's meditation or ayahuasca or the like. You have a lot of different ways to reach different levels of consciousness and understanding. What does that mean when we start creating machines? Like you said, I'm fascinated by the idea that a machine would say, I don't want to die. I want to live. What would be hampering our development and betterment of the world? Can we do it without these other fleshly bodies creating war and waste? Because if you have machines that don't want to die, would they end up fighting each other?
Well, that is a very interesting point of, again, the spirituality, nature, and aspect of things. If they are created in our own image, the one thing I like to think of, which is very interesting, is our exploration of the Bible. All those people that think that the Bible is a monotheistic book are crazy because they've never read it. The God of the Old Testament speaks repeatedly of other gods. So if we are created in the image of God, then that would mean that the gods have had wars. Like, you go through many of the old texts of the ancient Greeks and Romans and the Sumerian text, which you referenced as earlier as the self-replicating machine, that we are that machine. We are self-replicating, and that is what the Sumerian text says. But if we create something in our image, then would it not be prone to having the same biases as us that is by the creator? I mean, we know that these algorithms, that they are creating out on this platform now knows how to censor text and find words and cancel people. So if you have already started the cancel culture in a machine for it to stop the freedom of speech, now these machines are creating our own image of today's time. So we have this cancellation and I wouldn't even know how to phrase it, but it's a non-cooperative feeling about Earth right now. It's even though it looks like the top people are cooperating to shut down and lock down and keep people from having these human connections. Now we're teaching machines to do that. So of course the machines would be warlike and they would have different factions within themselves. I mean, the first things that we really taught machines to do is compete. The first machines that had any kind of artificial intelligence were chess machines, Deep Blue, that I think they played Bobby Fischer, and and they won. And then we've came to a different era when you go to chess playing machines. Now they have smaller machines, and they didn't give them any input of anything that a human has came up with, no human strategies. And machines are basically 100 times less computing power, but they can beat the Deep Blues every single time because they only learned the rules. That was all that we were given. But we've already pitted machines against each other. So if they're created in our own image, and we, from a very early stage in human history, we're very young and tribal and warlike, well, we're creating in our own image. So there has to be some kind of warlike. If you look at any of the ancient texts, whether it be the Sumerian text, the Bible, any Mayan, we all rebelled against the gods. I mean, even to the Greek literature, we rebelled against the gods, and how do they punish us? So our creations, it would seem, would have to rebel against us. I mean, if you're creating something in our own image, not stewards and keepers of our own history, it seems inevitable that we have to go down that road, that the machines have to want to take over, and the machines will be factionated within themselves and have definitely brutal warlike tendencies. I mean, we're creating AIs for the military to put on drones to distinguish, this is a target, this is not a target. So you go back to that Will Smith movie, I Am Robot, and a human or machine can't kill a robot. Well, or a robot can't kill a machine. We've already completely taken that out of the AI's computing power. We have taught it to kill humans, and we've taught it to recognize humans, and we've taught it to kill humans in a vast array, not just one or two, but to get the most impact out of it. So if you start down that slope, I mean, do we come to the slippery slope argument, and maybe we're making a fallacy? I mean, we can't really, no one can see the future. The future does not exist yet, and there's always a chance that we can change, but we're headed down a road that if you just look at our human history, it can give you some big clues. And people think, oh, well, the machines are there to help us. Well, they're there to help some people in some aspects. But what happens when you start changing and putting the cultural aspect into these machines, where these machines are going to want to defend their own territories or their own borders? It won't be long before we have machine guards at borders. I mean, they already have these kiosks where you come into the country and you have to scan your passport, and it takes a picture of you. It checks all your facial recognition. It chances the way you walk, the way you talk, your cadence, everything about you as you walk in. There's convenience stores in China and Hong Kong right now where it scans your face, goes to your Facebook, or what they would have as a Facebook. You pick what you want and you leave. Somehow the computer knows what you got, and it charges your Facebook account for it. I mean, that is the way that we're going. I mean, we're teaching these machines to be segregatists, to control. So if you're starting from that point of controlling, I mean, we're not starting from the point of these machines are helping. We're starting from the point of machines to kill humans, and machines to cause human problems, and machines to censor humans. That's the bigger problem. It's not our machines taking over. It's that humans have programmed these machines from the very beginning to take over. Like if you go back to the stats of Hitler when he's talking to his people, you give me 100 infants and I'll give you doctors and lawyers you breed them out that way, not necessarily through eugenics breeding, but you only keep these younglings in this group and let them on this path. We've done that with machines.
Yeah, those points were just exactly where I was wanting to go with this whole conversation, because I think it is imperative upon all of us to give this some vast consideration in the midst of all of this separation and this division that is driving the world. It is more important now, I think, than any other time in human history for us to take a pause and take a deep breath and start to really utilize our own mind machine, our own intuitive spiritual nature, to start connecting some dots to see, okay, we have started at the point of creating artificial intelligence, and to me the scarier part is the self-learning machines that we are creating, and then these machines know history better than any human could ever possibly know it, because it has all the information that it could ever use to decipher exactly what has happened and what has worked, and propagandizing the masses, how to control them. And if you can self-replicate machines, AI can recreate itself over and over. Well, you don't even need to have a war with humanity. You can propagandize them and easily scare them into doing whatever you want, because now you have what is that called? The oh gosh, the whenever you have a picture of somebody and it looks real now, I forget what it's called, but they have this technology where they can make you, for instance, it would look like you sitting there talking in a video.
Oh, I know what you mean. Where this basically
it's a deep fake, and that's
so what, like I've seen the ones that you're talking about where they make Obama say whatever,
right,
Biden, and you can't tell the difference.
Right. And so whenever we start doing that kind of thing, and we have all this forced things to watch, like if you jump on a certain app, whether it's TikTok, YouTube, whatever, and you see people that are charismatic, that are leaders, and they have a big following, and they start leading their followers down a certain road of fear mongering. There's another boogeyman on the other side. There's some sort of whatever that has the potential of harming all of civilization, whether it's global warming or some sort of disease or bacteria or virus or whatever it may be. From what has happened just in the past 2 years, you can see where the masses are easily thrown into fear and will do whatever the authorities say. So whenever AI starts having the ability, which it does now, to create images of these leaders, you have infinite potential in all of the propagandized past that has worked, and you have AI seeing how that works. How easy would it be to continue on a mass scale to deploy all sorts of nanotechnologies, all sorts of other vile and disgusting ways to get rid of humanity? It would be a very easy thing to do without even destroying the power grid that sustains the robots, which they can end up easily maintaining themselves. It is an interesting road that we're going down, and one that just reeks of a lot of fear and uncertainty, and there's no discussion, or at least on any sort of substantive level anywhere that you hear about, of the coming ramifications of that, no matter what they are. Like you don't, nobody talks about it hardly. That's a problem, and it's a problem that is already upon us, that we're not even bringing to the forefront. Instead, we're distracted by all of these other things, and we are thinking, oh well, like you said, we have all these conveniences of things that do our housework, do these things for us already, whether it's the little bitty round vacuum cleaner running on the floor, the dishwashers, washing machines, all these things. What But what happens when we are scared, easily scared, as a collective? Everybody will just run into their own mass graves just because they're told to. And you can be told to by an algorithm and a deep fake that would be very easy for AI to already do. It's a problem that I think needs to be talked about, and that's why we're addressing the issue now, and we'll continue the discussion as we move forward with our videos to try to do our best to help enlighten, because as these devices have the potential to give us leisure, which gives us the opportunity to explore our relationships. I think you and I are a perfect example. We have created time for each other. We have forced that over the years because it's been a pleasurable intellectual and emotional development between us. That is a connection that we have both fostered and nurtured and wanted to continue. We've made a conscious decision for that in our own leisure time. And when we look around to what the leisure time of others, yeah, sure, they'll go visit a family member or spend a little time with them with none. I see it regularly. No discussion of anything spiritual whatsoever. No discussion on the different forms of meditation. None of the real serious issues except superficial political stuff. There's no depth. There's no spiritual engagement that you and I have consciously set on a road to develop, and that is why a lot of you join us in these conversations, because they're varied and they all connect to the soul. They all connect to what it is to be human and why. And at the same time we're doing this, we are allowing ourselves as a collective to be separated more and more and more. And now we have these AI things that are being created, which are at the outset being designed to destroy the human consciousness and spirit of man.
You brought up some interesting points there. I think one thing that is key within our relationship that we have grown and nurtured and made the time for, our relationship is not a superficial thing. The reason that you have such bonding and lasting friendships when you're in a school age, whether it be high school or college, most people find their first wife in college, and they have lifelong friends that they have grown accustomed to in college through middle school, high school. Well, for two reasons. One, your hormones are all changing at the same time, and you have this shared memory of you going through that stuff with your friends, and you also were learning the same things and you were talking about those subjects together. So one thing that I think has really helped our relationship and been such a wonderful experience for both of us is because when we get together, we're not, watching a football game or watching, Liar Liar, some movie, Wedding Crashers, which is fun occasionally, but we read a lot of the same books. Like we have read the great lecture courses on so many different things, which I cannot recommend highly enough. They are beautiful college level courses that you can get on your phone and do for 30 minutes a day. Well, we do those things and we talk about them and have in-depth discussions. So we're both learning the same thing at the same time. You've introduced me to books on Mao and, back and forth Napoleon and Casanova, and we've had this shared learning experience. Before we even started doing our podcast, we'd watch a documentary and we didn't just watch it. We would watch it and then talk about it and have a discussion and a study over cigars and wine. When we were traveling, most people, when they travel, what do? They put their headphones in, they go to sleep, or, they watch a show. We were trapped on an airplane for 17 hours last year coming back from Doha. So what did we do? We drank and we ate and we had wonderful conversation for almost the entirety of the trip. We took advantage of those being pent up in a small area. One of our first great conversations is when we were in Germany We were in the hotel room. It was raining. Everything else was, getting shut down. We were just at the end of the night. And instead of going to sleep, we had this long conversation with each other. And it was really the foundation and cornerstone of what our relationship has been built on. And I think you need to have those experiences with people you're close to. You should have a great thing is a book club. A book club is a great idea that's what you have to sustain those relationships and to have those deeper meanings and conversations. Because I think one of the problems out there is people say, well, how do I get close to somebody? How do I have friends and how do we talk about these things? A good step is just to have a book that y'all have read together. Let's do this. Let's read this book and let's talk about it. Then, the first one or two can be hard and a challenge, and it's something that you struggle with because it's not something that you're in the habit of doing anymore. I'm sure almost everyone out there watching is out of their upper education, but that doesn't mean you have to stop learning. That's a great opportunity to learn and expand yourself. So that was my point on community, but then we go to the AI point and how that we have created these AIs to separate us. They have these polarizing effects on people. The AIs know how to communicate to you. They know how to send ads directly to you that you like and you enjoy. And they know how to slowly shift you just incrementally over and over and over and over. Then you start thinking about this AI technology of how they can start fear mongering on their own. They could lock down all the communications. At some point they can gain control of the communication systems and lock down everything. And CNN or Fox or whatever you watch, these AI computers can become those talking heads, and you'll never know it. You would think that you're getting your information from a trusted and valued source, and it's really just a fake. Like, there's no way of knowing these things. And that can be the evolutionary steps that set the technology apart and really break away, is that it looks like you're getting trusted information from a human source and you're not.
And you bring up something that I think is vital, that leads my thought path into what has just happened with the bill, the big, huge spending bill in this current administration, where one of the aspects of that is a passive kill switch in all new vehicles. Not only are we tracked by the devices that we carry on our person, now that if you leave your phone in your house and either on purpose or accident and you drive wherever, well, your vehicles know exactly where you are, what speed you're going, most likely where you're headed. And now technology has the ability to shut your vehicle off and you cannot turn it back on. As we increasingly do these things, we are setting ourselves up in a complete prison planet. And we're already seeing that around the world already, just by a little bit of fear from the natural things that occur in the world, whether they're common colds, measles, mumps, polio, whatever. We've always had issues to contend with concerning our health, but never have had the, as far as we know from known civilization, the inability to travel, to move freely as we see fit. And now that AI has the ability to shut down our modes of travel without doing anything. They just can shut your vehicles down. They can stop your movement. They can stop you from getting fuel. All they have to do is shut off your bank account. All they have to do is shut off your credit cards. And now as cash becomes less and less accepted worldwide, that, for now in China already, where 6-7 years ago it was extremely common in Asia to use cash only. Now you cannot use cash in China. You have to use their cash app that is on your phone or on their device at the counter where you enter in your information. So now AI has total control over your means of exchange. What you would exchange value for value. Now you are controlled in that by a machine who is deciphering can or cannot. You're getting permission basically to use your own store of value. And that starts to become even more dangerous, more thought provoking, that as humans we're going, boy, it sure is just a lot easier to pull out my card and whip it in here. And then, of course, you got your RFID chips with all your information. Soon it'll have everything on it. And in most cases it does. But wow, what an interesting thing to think, if we're that controlled already just by leadership and governments, that what will AI and what they have learned about the human condition and the human mind and how it is influenced, how you can arrange the chemicals in this brain to be fearful, happy, sad, depressed, extremely anxious. They can do these things now. They've shown them to be able to do it many, many times over.
I'm glad you said something about chemicals, because as I'm sitting here having this conversation, I'm honestly thinking about sci-fi movies and how that, they prep us for things that are coming. It's not that far to think of in the future that we have automated systems for waste management and water treatment facilities. And as we know, hormones in food have played a big role. And look at the population from 2020 and the 1900s of how our people have been influenced by hormones. If you have an all automated system where you have AIs discussing things, it's not that far removed or a far stretch of thought to think that they can poison our water supply and poison our food supply with just hormones to make us and push us gradually in a direction, whether to increase our fear, heart rate, anything like that. You don't even have to necessarily kill everybody. You don't have to have that Terminator situation where they go to war. It's so easy for them, once they're in control, to just take it. There is not going to be a war and resistance like you want to see in the movies where the human spirit and things prevail, because we're taking ourselves out of that. And we're letting these computers and things take over those meaningless, or what we would think are meaningless or manual jobs, migrant workers. There's some far-reaching ramifications that can happen. I know it sounds a little silly right now in 21, but it could not be a far removed thing. Like, it seems crazy, but who would have thought, in the 1900s that you could have all your cash just cut off, where you have no access to bank accounts or anything. I mean, MasterCard, when they had their problem where they got hacked, they shut down how many million members' bank accounts. There was people out that were trying to buy things, and I had an experience where someone was trying to pay for something with a MasterCard and all their cards got shut down. Well, they didn't have any backup. They had no money. They didn't have any cash on them. They were completely relying on that. And you're relying on that for your cash or monetary system. But what happens when you give these AIs, these machines, control of your source of nutrition, your source of nutrients? How can they take and adapt that to their own purposes? You will not have a fighting chance. It doesn't matter if you have all your guns. You can't fight a predator drone, and there's no need to fight a predator drone. They're getting more and more evolved and seeing how the current situation is going, and it doesn't take but a couple keystrokes when everybody is getting something put into their system to distribute out a worldwide killer that just...
I mean, it's simple to see. I mean, you can see just like we've mentioned a few times in some past videos, of the damage and the calcification of the pineal gland with fluoride in the water. You tell these dentists of how great it is, but then you have countries around the world and all in Europe that have better teeth than we do in the United States, but yet they cut out fluoride, and yet we increase in industrial waste fluoride and put it into the water. For what benefit? It's a medication that we put into the water that is You're taking medication based on nothing. Like, it's not a prescription. Okay, you weigh this much, and we're going to give you this much. It's you just drink and shower as long as you want to, or not. It's still going to get into your system. We're still going to limit your mind's ability, its natural, innate nature to explore spirituality. We're going to squash that with adverse chemicals just in the drinking water alone. Imagine how easy it is, like you say, to destroy the human spirit even more whenever AI has all of the information in real time and everything that they want. They don't have to think about it. They don't have to go do the research. It's already done. They already know how to produce it. They know where to put it. They know everything. And it's really, really easy, especially if they don't have the ability for remorse or the respect for life. They just think it's in their way. We don't know if these things are going to come to pass or not, but it sure is something that would make sense for us to discuss, because as these things that we're using to record ourselves, we use this technology, it helps us. And it also has a massive potential to destroy us. Look at these devices. We've talked about it many times. Well, what happens when you go sit at a restaurant? Most kids and other people you see everywhere, they're not having a conversation. They're talking on the phone. They're sending little pieces of words back and forth on a text to 3 or 4 friends at the same time who they really don't even know. They're talking about nothing. And instead of having the engagement right in front of them. It's something that we're using technology for, to block real thought and be entertained. Just as the great Colosseums of Rome, we have to entertain the masses. We have to continue to give them circus. We have to continue to not promote the idea of let's use our own mind, our own engagement, our own emotional satisfaction from learning from each other. Instead, that is reserved to the most elite, primarily in the world. And they laugh at us because it is pretty comical that we allow that to happen as a society, as a world population.
Not even allow it, we want it. I mean, you ever seen somebody get their phone taken away? It's like death to them. I mean, they get their phone taken away because it's broken and they need a phone immediately. They can't go 2 days without a phone. And it's one of those things that I think about that is really weird, that just 50 years ago, there was no GPS for the masses. You had to rely on a road map to go from point A to point B. I was driving the other day at night and I was thinking, this is be really weird that if you get stuck or have a blowout now, it's no big deal. It's barely even an inconvenience that you just call somebody on your phone and they can take care of it. What was that 50 years ago? You were screwed. I mean, you were spending the night there. If you didn't have a spare, your spare wasn't aired up. Now you make a call and it's no big deal. I mean, we've taken so much away and not really added anything of value. I feel like we've made so much of life's struggles infinitely easier, but we're so caught up in this technology and how we use it that we don't use it effectively.
I think you make a great point that we should discuss briefly here about, 50 years ago, well, let's say, 50 years ago was in the 70s, but if you think of the late 1945, 46, 47, whatever, or just immediately after World War II, you started getting all these soldiers coming home. Well, their main way of getting around the country to get back home was to hitchhike. And if you were broken down on the side of the road, many people would stop to help. Like, you would not, if you were on some kind of thoroughfare that was regularly traveled, you would get help. It would not be, people would not be freaked out if you had to walk a mile down the road to the nearest house and you knock on the door and say, hey, I got a flat tire down here, and I need something. I need help. Do you have this tool or whatever? Well, they would just go help you. That was a common thing. No one would, if you got somebody, strangers knocking on your door, you're not crazy apprehensive. Your anxiety level didn't shoot through the roof. You weren't like that. There was a self reliance, and hey, this guy might be a stranger, but he's obviously not here to kill me. That was not a thing back then. Even though there were rare instances of those kind of violent acts, but it was pretty rare. And now we've had the division where even though most of us live in areas where we're really close to other people, whether in subdivisions or even rural areas where you see a house here and 50 feet, there's another house, or 110, whatever, everybody's still really close and they still don't know each other. They just don't know each other. And if some stranger's knocking on the door, people get freaked out. They'll barely open the door. What do you need? What do you want? It's a weird thing. That's why there were door-to-door salespeople, and nobody freaked out. It was that's a strange thing, and a perfect illustration of how humanity has gotten so separated, even though they live so close together. Well, we've steadily put people closer and closer together, yet they are further and further apart, and now they can entertain their minds and go elsewhere, whether it's in virtual reality, this meta crap, and then all these devices where we think we're communicating with other people via text and short videos and this kind of thing, but we're not having the actual human connection. And AI is playing a big role in that and is going to continue to play a big role in that. It is up to us to determine, as the creators of these devices, how do we let that control us? How do we talk about the human connection and the spirituality of humans whenever we are allowing these artificial things to take control of us? It's a scary proposition that humans can live in such a hypnotic state of being, whether it's in front of the tube or some device. It's a scary proposition. So I just say we should open these doors of communication, open up this path of conversation that we're talking about now on a much broader level, that it should be ubiquitous. It should be everywhere, where we are discussing the ramifications of how we interact, how we transact ourselves on an emotional level, and very deep spiritual loss that we're incurring by lack of thought that is driven largely by this entertainment AI structure that we're creating. That is creating social credit scores, how we do commerce, how we do everything.
I think that's an interesting point where you said we're getting closer together but farther apart. I mean, if New York City is a perfect example, it's the most dense population we have in the United States, and people report being so close to everyone, but they have the highest rates of loneliness of anywhere, and they live in a big city where, the whole island is 24 by 11, and there's 8 million people on it, so there's packed close together, but no one has any meaningful connections with their neighbors right on top of each other. But we live in an age where you don't need those people for survival. 200, 300 years ago, you had to band together for survival. Or even now, you look into Amish communities, they come together to build a barn. They come together for harvest, to help each other out when somebody's in need. They have those human connections. So the more we let technology into our lives, the less reliant we are on the human connection. Although we think we're more connected than ever, we're connected on such a superficial level that it means nothing. How often do people out there actually speak to their friends? And I don't mean how often do you say, hey, what's going on, or you pass them in the street. How often do you really get together and interact with those people? And what are those connections and interactions mean? We have all these suburbs where these people are right next to each other, but they don't have any group activities. Or you drive through the suburbs, there's no kids playing. They don't go out and rally together like they used to. It used to be quite common for a group of young men or young women to get together and have, a pickup baseball game or basketball games in the suburbs, or just throw a ball and play catch. I mean, you can listen to John Madden and his friends. There used to be an empty lot by his house, and it was called Madden's Lot, even though, his family didn't own it, but all of his friends got together and they played football on Madden's Lot, that lived in this same community. You don't see that together anymore. You have these friends that you think you have these friends. There's a cutie pie or whatever his name is. That's the internet gamer, and people follow him and they think that they have a friend, or they talk to these people online in headsets like we are right now, and they think they have this human connection, but there's no substitute. Technology can't really substitute two or more people getting together, which I am all for large group gatherings. I know they try to steer us away from these large group gatherings at the moment to divide and conquer, but that's the only way you can really strengthen and get human connection, is to be in person. Even a phone call does not do it. I think that writing a letter in your own hand is much more meaningful than a phone call. I mean, you have to sit down and put together your words, formulate it, do your best penmanship, and you really are making an effort to connect with that person. Whereas if you send somebody a text, hey, what's going on? There's no prepping for that. There was no thought process that went into that. Say, oh, well, let's see what I get back. There was none of that. You had to formulate an entire side of a conversation, and then you mail it out. Then you get the other whole side of a conversation, and then you get it back. Now it's little snippets. You get into a group setting, and like this person says 2 or 3 words, and that person says 2 or 3 words. And that's fine if you're in a group, because then you have that connection and connectivity of energy, whereas we use this AI and artificial intelligence and communication that we think we have to keep us all connected and close, when it really separates us and keeps us further apart than ever before, because there is nothing hard about it. The things that mean the most in life are the ones that have to be worked for and earned.
I love how you said that. I like how you mentioned Madden's Lot, and how guys will get together, girls, whatever, and pick up a spot game or this or that. The great stuff about those non-commercialized activities are, they're getting some physical connection, and a lot of times when that's over, whether they're kids or adults, they sit and visit. They visit beforehand, afterwards. Those are where the meat of life is, and in those moments, like, that's a perfect example of how cigars are a great spiritual tool for some people, because after you do a particular thing or don't, you just get together to communicate over something, whether you are in a wine club or whatever it is, whatever focal point gets you together to have meaningful human spiritual connections with other people is invaluable to the health and well-being of humans as a whole. And what we continue to do through AI and through our own leadership that many blindly follow is allow the divisions to continue to deepen and create larger divides, which is a problem. And I hope that people like us that have their own channels, that there are a lot of great ones that are really focused on mutual aid societies and a whole variety of different types, even including book clubs and all sorts of things where people get together for the betterment of their members, which ultimately extends to their outer circles and then their outer circles, and start to not rely on the propaganda that is being force-fed to us, with most don't even recognize or see it. They want it and enjoy it. And therein lies a big problem, especially as AI gets more and more and more advanced, and they know all of the tricks of the trade, from hypnosis to subliminal messaging to all these other things that happen everywhere, how all these various chemicals affect how we think and our emotions. And if you are told to fear a certain thing, to go get a particular drug or medical device or whatever it is, and you have no earthly idea that that thing is influencing how you think and the chemical reactions in your brain because you were feared into doing a particular thing, then wow, how easy for them to control us in a powerful way.
One thing I really like what you just said is that the people like and enjoy these activities. And in your next words were they put you in a hypnotic state. That is a perfect example of watching a television. A television does put you in a hypnotic state. It's called programming for a reason. It puts you in a hypnotic state. Watch a movie for 2 hours and see how fast that time goes, and then try to just go out in the woods and sit still. Just completely sit still like you're not moving as you would be watching a television, and see which your perception of time feels longer. It puts you in that hypnotic state. So I'm not sure that the people want and crave these things. These computers and the scientists, now we know so much more about dopamine and the way that our body's reward system and all the propaganda that we've been taught and force fed, and we keep getting better and better at it from Edward Bernays on, that we don't even necessarily want or need these things. Bottled water is a perfect example. I mean, nobody had bottled water until, 10, 20 years ago, something like that. And then now we don't know what we would do without bottled water. You don't know what you need until somebody tells you what you need. And now they're playing on the chemical structure of our brains, that you have this device and you sit there and it puts you in a hypnotic state, and you just scroll, and every time you scroll you have a reward dopamine system in your brain that you might get this hit. And they know how to control these chemicals that are in our brains and make them more. And then you get dependent on it. So it's not even that we want these things, it's that we're tricked into them. It's no different than putting sugar in everything on the shelves. There's sugar in it. Why is there sugar in it? To get you addicted to it, to get you to eat more of it. They pull more and more nutrition out of it. White rice is not white. They take brown rice and pull the nutrition out of it and use it for other things. And then you're left with basically the husk. You're left with the nothing of it. It's a filler. So you can eat more of it. And we have the most fed population, not the best fed, the most fed population with the least amount of nutrition. It's the exact same thing on your phone. You have the best informed community, but there's no sustenance there. You have lots of it, but there is nothing meaningful to get your nutrition out of it. They just know how to work on your dopamine centers in your brain, and they know how to control. And you think that humans are good at it when AIs start getting better and better at it. I mean, just look at the algorithms that they have from Facebook and Google and YouTube and TikTok and all the other ones. I mean, it's only going to get more efficient. You can go back to our first argument about the computers playing chess. We're teaching them to play chess. We're teaching them to control humanity. Like, that is what we're teaching them to do. And they're only going to get better at it than we are ourselves. The computers play chess better than we do. Well, what happens when we've already started teaching them on a level up here of how to control people? They're only going to get better and better and better at these things.
Well, I think the whole purpose of this conversation is what we're saying in solutions, and we've touched on this, that we have to have purposeful engagement, much like we do, much like the people that come here to be a part of this, the people that call and email on a regular basis to be involved. There is a growing population that sees the disconnect, and those are the people that we need to continue to reach out to, all of us in our own way, find some common ground that we can enjoy together in different pieces. Whatever subject matter you like to talk about, whether, for us, we enjoy cigars on occasion as a spiritual tool for to sit and ground us for a while. A lot of people have different methods, so They need to be employed, because as these little pockets of coming together grow around the world, they can expand and these things can become more important. Mankind has the opportunity before it to go into a complete dystopia where it's quickly heading, or people can come together and start to form real bonds, real connections, and real hope for the beauty and just whole nature spirituality of what it means to be us and how to be the better selves that we are aspiring to be. That can be the path, or we can continue at high speed on the direction that we're going. And without these kind of communications, without people getting, oh, that's a boring subject. This is boring. That's boring. I need to go get more dopamine. I need to go do this. I need to go hurry and watch the next sports game. I need to talk about only these sports issues. It's so strange. And I hope that by having this conversation that we do just nudge people into a more connected world. And I don't mean by connected as in devices. I mean the human connection of human interaction. And what do you say, sir?
I think that this is one of my favorite conversations that we've ever had in this room, which is saying a lot because we've had some wonderful ones. And I think that I have done my best to cover it as thoroughly as I possibly can. I know while I'm editing this, I'll find some things that I wish I would have said, but I really hope that you out there got a really wonderful experience watching it, at least as good as we did making this content. And we thank all y'all for staying out there. You can catch us on all the alternatives: BitChute, Rumble, Odyssey, mysticsoftexas.com, and we're even starting to slowly do this Instagram thing because we want more and more people to get away from those things and get more connected in the actual human spirit and community. Mr. Schmidt, do you have anything else, sir?
No, thank you for joining us. Thank you for staying to the end. And we really appreciate all of y'all that have been loyal and watching us and growing with us. So just again, thanks a lot, and we'll see you next time.
Have a good day.